Alright everybody, welcome back to this video series on publishing custom applications to Massdriver. So in the previous videos we published this custom application to Massdriver, then we set up environment variables, and then we set up a custom secret for it. This application's ready to deploy now, but before we can deploy it we need a Docker image. So technically we could just use this WordPress image. It is a public image and it's what we've been basing the configuration off of. But in order to demonstrate running custom applications, we want to use a private Docker image. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I've made a custom Docker file here that is really just based off of that WordPress image that we've been using. So this will work for, again, demonstration purposes to see how we can build and push a custom Docker image and run it using Massdriver. So in order to build and push this, we can use the Massdriver CLI. So open up a terminal and navigate to the directory where you have your Docker file. In this case, we're storing the Docker file right alongside the application repository. What would be the application repository in this example? So the command that we'll be running is mass image push. If we type -h, we can get a usage, the help usage here. So you'll see that there's this -a artifact flag that we need to pass. This is the artifact ID of a cloud credential artifact to be able to push this image. So the CLI, the Massdriver CLI, is designed to push these Docker images to a cloud image repository, either ECR, GCR, or ACR. Since we're running in Amazon, we're going to be using ECR. So let's head back to the Massdriver console and let's go grab the artifact ID of our AWS credential artifact. So if we go into the artifacts window, right down here we have Massdriver AWS IAM realm. This is the credential that we added to be able to deploy to AWS. So go ahead and click on that. And right up here, if you click this button, this is going to copy the artifact ID to your clipboard, which is what we need. We can head back into the terminal now, and we can type mass image push. For the namespace and image name, we're going to use massdriver/blog. Type -a and give it the artifact ID that we just copied. Then we need to specify the region. In this case, I'm going to use US East 2 just because that's where everything else is deployed for this example. Go ahead and hit enter. And now this is going to take a couple of minutes to build and push, so we'll fast forward through it and then we'll pick up the video afterwards. Alright, there we go. So the image pushed successfully. Let's go double check in AWS just so we can see that that image was pushed. So if we go here to ECR, if I refresh this, and there we go. Here's the image that we just pushed. So go ahead and copy that URI. We're going to need this to be able to deploy. And let's head back into Massdriver and let's actually deploy this application. So go into projects and navigate to wherever that application is. Here it is. And go ahead and click configure here. So now we're going to configure this application and we'll deploy it. For the Kubernetes namespace, it's always good to run applications in their own dedicated namespace. In Kubernetes, it's namespaces act as a security boundary. For the repository, go ahead and put in that URI that we just copied. Image tag of latest works, that's the default tag that we use. If you specified a different tag, go ahead and use that one. For the CPU cores, we're just going to say 0.25, which is a quarter of a CPU. For the memory, we'll say it's 512 megabytes. For the pod auto-scaling, we're going to leave it turned off. You can turn this on if you want, and this will allow you to auto-scale your deployment up and down. In this case, from 1 to 10 replicas based off of the CPU, targeting 80% CPU utilization. For the purposes of this demo, we're just going to hard code it to a single replica. Now, the port for this container is 80. That's what WordPress exposes. We're going to enable public internet access. This is specifically, for this to work, you need to make sure that you set your Kubernetes cluster up to be able to not only have ingress running, but also associated to a Route 53 DNS zone. In this case, we are associated with the MD AWS SBX domain. So we'll put this just on blog.mdawssbx.com on the default path. For the database name, now this database needs to exist. It actually says this in the public image. In this case, I've already created a database named blog in MySQL, so we're going to use that one. And we'll click debug mode enabled here and go ahead and deploy that. Now this should run pretty quick, but we'll fast forward past all this until it is deployed successfully. All right, there we go. We've seen both of these have completed, and this is green. That's a good sign. So our application is out and running. If we open up a window and we go to blog.mdawssbx.com, this is going to fail just because of DNS propagation. Literally, we just deployed this application. It's going to take a few minutes for DNS to propagate. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to show you a few things. First of all, we can go and take a look at this application running in Kubernetes so we can see the configuration and make sure that it's actually configured correctly. So let's run kubectl get pods in the blog namespace. And we'll see that's the pod that's actually running. It's only been running for 54 seconds. Let's describe that pod. What we can see here is all of those environment variables that we set up in the previous video. So this auth key is actually the secret. You'll see that this was the value that we used. So that got put in there securely. We also have the DB host, the DB password, and the DB user. All of these are coming from the MySQL connection. The DB name is what we hard coded in the, or I should say we set in the application configuration in the UI. And then WordPress debug, if you remember, we enabled that. And so that set that value to 1. So all of those environment variables are now working. Oh, we also have the table prefix. This was, I believe, hard-coded just to blog in our massdriver.yaml file. So that's good. We're seeing that all of these environment variables are set properly. Everything seems to be working. So now it's just a matter of waiting for the DNS to propagate. So I'm going to wait here at this screen and we'll pick it up in a few minutes once the DNS is propagated and the site is working. And there we go. WordPress is now working. So we can just click through here. We'll call this Massdriver blog. Install. This should just take a couple of moments. And let's log in. And here's the WordPress admin dashboard. So we've successfully built and deployed a custom application through Massdriver. In the next video, we'll look at adding additional connections to this application and using the automatic IAM management features in Massdriver. Subscribe to stay up to date to all of our latest videos and head to massdriver.cloud to get started today.